Hello and welcome to Garden Clinic TV. You know, gardening is exactly the same as the rest of our lives. You can save a lot of money just with a bit of clever propagation, especially if you're looking for something really unusual. Now, when it comes to Frangipanis, along with crepe myrtles, I think they're very likely Australia's most favoured small tree for a garden. Even in a large pot and a tub on a balcony, you can grow some fantastic Frangipanis. The varieties, honestly, since I was a kid when it was yellow and white and yellow and that was it, now there are literally dozens and dozens of varieties. You don't have to go to Hawaii to see all the different varieties in people's gardens. Now, there are a lot of hybrids being developed here in Australia. One of them I discovered on a farm up on the north coast of New South Wales, a propagating farm, and I just thought, wow, this is a beauty. And I said to the propagator, I said, I'd love that one out. And he said, yeah, would you like it? I said, yeah. He said, well, name it after you. So it's called Big G, and it's a beautiful plant. But honestly, we took cuttings of it, propagated it, and it's been years and years. Now, plants often have, when you're breeding them, what they call inherent vigour. Now, have a look at this plant, will you? Look at the vigour of those leaves. And it finally flowered this year. Beautiful flowers, and it really is a stunner. So, but that vigour, honestly, I did not expect that. It makes fantastic growth every year. But you can get some propagating happening in your garden, on your balcony, just by knowing where there's a really good one. Now, there might be one down the street. There might be one that your friend's got. It's a deep red one. It's a multicoloured, bright pink and beautiful varieties in one flower, colours in one flower. Well, don't worry. Ask, could you get a cutting? And now is a perfect time in the middle of winter to get those cuttings. Now, most people would go for a little cutting like this, but if you go for a big cutting like this one, you end up with a very big plant. You've got to be patient. This one is 2 years old. Now, it was a cutting. It's been in this pot here for 2 years, but the root system, they are so slow to produce roots. Now, I haven't opened this up for quite some time, but I'm going to do that in a moment just to show you how little roots that it has, and I'm going to repot it back into this same pot. But when you take your cutting from your friend's plant, or one down the street, and you get a nice big stem, even at this time of the year, it may still be covered in leaves. Now, don't just rip all the leaves off because it'll start to bleed. Once it starts to bleed, it's losing energy. You want to keep all that energy in there. You want to save a few bob and also get a nice big plant. Well, don't ruin it from the very time you get the cutting. So just cut these leaves off, but leave the petiole. That's the little leaf stem. Now, these little leaf stems here will eventually drop off of their own accord. So this is your big cutting. Just cut these little leaves off. Leave the little petioles on the stems there, and you'll find that you'll get a minimal amount of bleeding, but eventually those little petioles will drop off and it'll seal over the wound. Now, this is a cutting. Yeah, isn't it a beauty? 3 stems. It was taken from the same plant, actually. It's a huge plant growing in the front of our clubhouse. Some of you driving past, or you might see it on the odd photographs in your garden magazine. And it's a real cracker of a plant. It's got a lovely pink flower, really soft, delicate pink, but masses of it. And it's also very vigorous. So I got this stem, nice 3 branches there. So it's a nice little plant in the making. And I pruned this branch off. Now, that would be about 6 weeks ago. Now, I've just left it in the shade, not in full sun, in the shade, and I just want to show you the end. See, it's completely calloused over. There's no bleeding there. If I'd stuck this straight in the ground or into a pot, it would have completely rotted off at the base and I'd have lost my cutting. But this is firm, it's healthy, and it's really full of a whole heap of energy ready to develop new roots over the next couple of years. It is slow, so don't rush the process, but certainly take your time to get a nice cutting like this, and then just let it sit in the shade somewhere, away from rain, away from frost, and away from the sunshine, and that little heel there will seal over and you won't get any bleeding. It also encourages some new roots to come away from this stem, because that's going to be my new plant eventually. So that's the way to look for a cutting, and that's the way to prune off those little leaves, leave the petioles there, and they'll drop off of their own accord. Now, 3 years ago, I took this cutting of a very special Frangipani we have in our garden called Willow Sunset. Now, this cutting here is actually struck, and it put on this much growth last year. It's another vigorous variety. Beautiful flowers, in fact, magnificent flowers, about 3 different colours in it. It's called Willow Sunset. Now, this plant has been potted up. The cutting has struck. Now, just let me show you how this cutting has developed roots. Well, there you go. Look at that. A beautiful amount of roots there. A couple of little bugs in there I need to get rid of. But that has taken 2, nearly 3 years to get into this sort of stage. So you need to be patient, but it's worthwhile because I've now got a beautiful cutting from our Willow Sunset in our garden, and it's a really stunning plant. So that's what you end up with. So firstly, let me take the cutting that we've already taken. So what do? Bung it in the ground? Well, you can, and sort of take pot luck, or you can be a little bit more scientific, and that is to make up a potting mix that's really going to encourage a good root system. Now, in this case, I'm going for a seed raising mix and adding some fine gravel. So this is the seed raising mix. Put that in there. And some gravel. You can see the size of the gravel. Just pour it in. And then with your gloved hand, always when you're working with potting mix, always put your gloves on and then give it a good mix and really, okay, there we go. Okay, mix that through. You can see the gravel there starting to appear, and that's going to give really good drainage. You're not really wanting moisture retention as you would in a regular potted plant. This is a big cutting. So then put our plant in there, if I can balance that on my shoulder, and then just pop the mix in. Okay, now just lift it off the bottom of the pot just a little to give it a bit of space, then push that down really tight, and that gravel will hold your plant in place. Now the gravel is going to ensure that you've got good drainage. The seed raising mix is going to do the same, but there's a bit of organic material in there to hold just a little bit of moisture. You don't want too much. This is going to sit in there like this fellow for a couple of years. Yes, a couple of years. But I'm going to end up with not a plant this size, but a plant this size. This is a $35, $40 plant for nothing. That's really good. So when you're looking at Frangipanis, keep your eye out during the spring and summer season when they're in full flight, and you just might find a friend's got one that you'd just like to make a nice big cutting from. Now, I haven't actually taken this one out to show you, but let me just see. Now, I'm not expecting much of a root system on this one because it's only been in there for a couple of years. Okay, so there's the root system. Really small, but it's been producing this plant and producing beautiful leaves every year for the last two and a half years. So I'm going to pop this one up. Just lean that on there. I'll put it back into the same pot, and I might, now that it's started to develop some roots, I think I'll actually start to pot it up as though it is actually going to start to grow there, because those fine little root hairs during the warmer months of the year, they'll really take off. Now I'll get some potting mix and pot this one up. Okay, let's get this big fellow. It's already struck. It's 2 years old, but I'm still wanting to get a lot more roots on it. So a bit of potting mix in there. I've put some more gravel into it, by the way, so I'm just wanting to really encourage a nice big root system. Take as much of this as possible. There it is. Now I've had quite a bit of gravel into there because it's really still in the propagation mode. Still got to develop a good root system. So it's already been in the original, in this pot for 2 years, and its root system is still very minimal. So you do have to be patient, but that's part of the fun, waiting for it to finally... Right, well, there's our Frangipani cutting. Now, the great thing is, of course, hasn't cost us anything. Bit of patience, bit of time, 2 years there, another year in that pot, and it'll have a good root system like its little cousin here. And then you end up with a plant virtually the choice, the colour that you want for your particular landscape, maybe on a balcony, a nice big tub on a veranda. How good would that be? Or out in the garden. And it's the variety you've chosen and you've propagated it. Yay, 5 stars for you. It's a lot of fun and you've saved a heap of money. Now, if you've liked this segment, we do have a couple of Frangipani stories also up on our YouTube channel. So have a look at those as well. If you've liked this one, don't forget to like us and, of course, subscribe to the channel. And that way, we'll let you know when there's a new story going up. Now, if you've got any questions or if there's a particular plant or a story you'd like us to cover, just add that information in the comment section on the YouTube channel and we'll follow those up and certainly we'll answer your questions for you. Well, I hope you enjoyed that, gave you some information. Good luck, good gardening, and thanks for watching.